to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Ms. Williams.
Mr. Lyons?
Here.
Mrs. Misbach?
Here.
Mr. Kashani? Mr. Kashani? Mr. Kashani? We'll come back. Dr. Campbell?
Here.
Mr. DiTullio?
Here.
Dr. Mihalik?
Here.
Dr. Meyer?
Here.
Mr. Moy?
Here.
Mrs. Swope?
Here.
Mr. Kashani, you're muted if you'd like to unmute and say you're here. Okay, Mr. Kashani, I'm going to mark you absent since we can't hear you. So when you come on, if you could just say that you're here, I'd appreciate it. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda before we get to recognition of visitors is an educational model update from Dr. Miller.
Thank you. Mr. Stovener, if you want to pull up the PowerPoint. Okay. If you want to go to the title slide, Sean, we'll begin there. Okay, Sean, can you give me a thumbs up if you're good? Okay. Good evening. Tonight's presentation is being recorded. It will be sent out tomorrow morning as an e-blast to our student, staff, and families. And in addition to the presentation podcast, we will also have a selection survey for our parents. Next slide. So key points tonight, again, just focusing on the iterative nature of this process, really important to understand. We're going to outline return to hybrid dates, go over conditions and cases, talk a little bit about the holistic dashboard that we have shared over the last few weeks, the CDC core and secondary indicators, and then talk about some recommendations and next steps. Next slide, Sean. It's been a month or so since we shared this image, but just wanted to reinforce how important it is to the work of the district over the last 8 months and for the foreseeable future. So at the foundation of this are guidance and information coming from a number of agencies like the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, PA Department of Health, Allegheny County Health Department. We also have that 43-member Healthcare Leadership Council. This is a critical group. It represents all of our staff stakeholder groups, so teachers and paraprofessionals and secretaries, administrators, facilities. It includes our key partners like food service and transportation. It also includes 2 student representatives, high school age students, and we have 12 healthcare experts. These are subject matter experts who are part of our community and in a variety of different medical and public health fields. Many of them have active children in the district, and some have students who have graduated from Pine-Richland. So all of that guidance and that group helps serves to inform our planning. We've had about 13 weeks from the start of school through Thanksgiving break of our hybrid model in action. We've been full virtual since Thanksgiving break, and as you'll see tonight, we're recommending a return to hybrid in a tiered approach. Next slide. Sean. So we've seen this many times. We are in almost all cases full virtual right now, so we're at the right side of this continuum in the V cloud. The only exception is we have a small number of students with more intensive needs who have remained in face-to-face instruction at the secondary level. And again, what we're recommending tonight is a return to that green starburst H. It is that that hybrid model that's a dynamic hybrid and includes different elements and components based upon the grade spans. Next slide. This is an update of the Allegheny County confirmed and probable cases. So we've been tracking this obviously for many months now. And what we anticipated going into Thanksgiving break, we were on that exponential increase. And we can see, at least at this point, a peak around the December 17th report time. We have started to see a decrease, and part of that was during the holiday break. Allegheny County Health Department attributes that to some degree with reduced amount of and availability of testing. What we anticipate for the next report period is maybe another slight increase from our 1.7 data, but ultimately the experts are suggesting that we are nearing that flattening moment of the curve with the hopes that we will begin to move down the backside of that curve in the upcoming weeks and months. Next slide. For several weeks now, we have shared a more holistic dashboard in our weekly e-blast. So everyone in our staff and community is familiar with those first two metrics around incidence rate and PCR positivity. But one of the reasons we shifted to the more holistic dashboard is to better understand the quality of our mitigation strategies at Pine-Richland. So we can see of the first 5 key mitigation strategies, consistent and correct use of masks. This is critical. And we have done an excellent job. We could not ask for more in terms of cooperation and support of our students, staff, and everybody with respect to masks. One of the things we also know is that cloth face coverings that meet the design specifications of the CDC provide the best support, not only for the wearer, but for others. And so as we've continued to move through this process, we understand that cloth face coverings provide additional advantage in the school setting. There are some students where for medical reasons and appropriate reasons, they can't do that. But for most cases, we have already seen students and staff in cloth face coverings. The second is physical distancing. Again, the reason this is shaded dark green, which is a very positive indicator, is because in our design model, we provide the 6 feet of physical distancing between students, and we also provide 6 or more feet of physical distancing for staff. And again, that's a high quality gold standard approach to mitigation. The last one I wanted to mention on this slide is around contact tracing in collaboration with Allegheny County. We have an incredibly effective and efficient relationship with Allegheny County Health Department, and we have also built the procedures within our district staff, school nurses, administrators, and other key personnel, to when we receive a report, our ability to understand the report, gather appropriate information, communicate with Allegheny County Health Department, and confirm our action or determine whether additional action is necessary. We have that down to hours. So this is something that we're able to gather, develop, communicate, confirm, all within hours, almost always within the same day, and sometimes literally within minutes. Next slide. But the next advantage of the holistic dashboard are all of these other core mitigation strategies that CDC says to the extent possible. And again, what we can see, and part of the value of the holistic dashboard, is to see all of these elements, both the measures and metrics, but also the design structure of our approach, and what are we doing to help create and value health and safety within our planning. Next slide. And the final piece of the CDC dashboard that we've been using is around the impact of COVID-19 on the hospital systems. And so, again, on a daily basis, I'm reviewing information from Open Data PA. you're able to export that data and filter for Allegheny County, and then specifically look at the indicators that the CDC has identified. And then again, based on their thresholds, we assign a color and have included that in our weekly e-blast. Next slide, Sean. So part of the point of this is that the CDC and even shifts in PDE and PA Department of Health talk about that just because based on the metrics of incidence rate and PCR positivity, it doesn't mean a school cannot reopen, but the risk of introduction means that we really need to pay attention to those core mitigation strategies. And that's where we can control some of those factors. And we've taken a lot of time and effort in order to design what our hybrid model looks like for students, staff, and families. Next slide. So an update on Pine-Richland cases. So we went to school, obviously, through just prior to Thanksgiving break. We can see how cases were increasing at that time. In December, we were in the full virtual model, and that has continued now through January 18th. But what we can see here also is the distribution across buildings, and we see that the reality of COVID-19, as we've been talking about for many months, is that it's in the community. It is spread largely through social family gatherings, other circumstances where the big three is not either not possible or not practical given family transmission. But again, the point here is that a highly regulated school environment with disciplined attention to those mitigation strategies provides an opportunity to balance our three key drivers in terms of health and safety, learning effectiveness, and flexibility. Next slide. I'm going to spend a little bit of time here. This is really going to be an important slide to understand. And there are times when words like transparency are used because there's a lack of clarity or understanding around what something means. So we have seen some version of this slide, which was released by the Pennsylvania Department of Ed and Pennsylvania Department of Health. We've seen this really since August. It was revised more recently in order to differentiate between the size of schools. And so what we see in the left column are three sizes of schools, small, medium, and large, and you can see the schools at Pine-Richland that fit into each of those categories. What the Pennsylvania Department of Education has asked public school districts to do is to complete an attestation form if some manner of hybrid or in-person learning is happening. And we had done that, and we will do that again as we make changes to our model. But what this means is that we are agreeing to apply the concepts on this slide. But it's really important we understand what this means and how decisions will be made within the school district. So if you look at the third column from left, the one with the header that says close school or schools for 3 to 7 days, it has a red asterisk on it. And as we look down that column, we see a range of cases at small, medium, and large schools. So for example, Hance Elementary, 2 to 4 student and or staff cases, you would read this to think that school must be closed for 3 to 7 days. Well, there's a big difference between 2 and 4, just as there's a big difference between 6 and 10 at Eden Hall and the high school. And so the reason we've made those numbers at the top of the range red is because the quality of our design model, the quality of our hybrid learning, the ability to account for cleaning and physical distancing and mask wearing within our schools puts us in a position where, again, the risk of transmission within the school is low. And so we're able to consider the top end of this range in decision making. In addition to that, you see that there's an asterisk on 3 to 7 days. The reason for that is because PDE and the Department of Health, they identified school closure for the reasons of contact tracing, case investigation, and cleaning. And in all three examples of those three C's, we are at a place of operation where we're getting information in hours, minutes, not in days or weeks. And so we'll move to the next slide, Sean. So the idea here is that we have a responsibility as we return to a hybrid model of learning to track the number of cases that accumulate within a school building over a 14-day rolling window. And so that means that we will have 6 different counts, 6 different tracking windows within each of our 6 schools. The window begins day 1 with the first case of symptom onset. And that has to be a case, student or staff, who was physically present while infectious in order to count. So fully virtual students, for example, would not count. Or a student or staff member who is a confirmed case but had not been in school physically during the period of infection, they would not count towards that cumulative total within a 14-day window. And so the last 2 bullets here, closures designed to support case investigation. As I said, that's something we're incredibly efficient and effective in doing now. We do not need days to accomplish that work. Based upon our design model, we can accomplish that within minutes and hours and confirm that with Allegheny County. So the reality for Pine-Richland School District, based upon the individual circumstances in a building, it is possible that even with a number of cases that meets sort of those threshold numbers, even if that happens, it is possible that no period of closure or a shorter period of closure would be appropriate given the circumstances. And so that's going to be important to understand, because when that is not understood, there can be some that say, hey, wait a minute, you said if 4, then we're closing for 3 to 7 days. No, we said this is the guideline. There are no magic numbers, and we have to discern and understand the specific details before making a decision. Next slide, and hopefully this will help make that more clear. So on this slide, we're using an example of the high school. So the Eden Hall and the high school, if you look in the left column, we have 10. That means the range is 6 to 10 cases within that 14-day window. And if so, then we would consider a period of closure. So in this example, on day 1, we've identified 3 fictitious students and or staff members who are confirmed positive. So when we learn of that, it would start the first day of the rolling 14-day window. And if you look at the very bottom row, you see that on day 1, we have a total of 3 cases. In this example, let's say we picked up another case on day 2, we're at 4. We pick up 2 more cases on day 4, we are at 6. And if you follow that, when we get to day 14, using this example, we're at 9 cases. So based upon that threshold and framework, we know that as soon as we move to day 15, 3 of those cases will move off of our rolling window count. You can see even if we pick up another case, it changes the number that are in the building at any one time. So this is what's going to be happening across 6 buildings and have to be monitored and understood. And again, what makes this even more challenging to discern, and it's not a lack of clarity or transparency, it's just all of the details and discernment that goes with COVID-19 and what it means for schools, is a building might have other cases, but those cases may not have ever been physically present in that school during a period of infection. And so it's not even as simple as saying how many people at the high school, for example, how many cases have we had? And how has that changed from this Friday to next Friday? Because some of those cases would count towards this sort of methodology and some of them wouldn't. And so again, the point is what the district and other public schools have been asked to do is really monitor cases and monitor what's happening within the school environment and the nature of those cases. And given that holistic understanding, work with the local health department, in our case, Allegheny County Health Department, to determine whether a period of closure is required. If it would be required, then that would require a shift in model at that particular school. That then starts the clock back to 0, and recounting would begin. So again, there's a level of detail and complexity, but the concepts are clear. And again, it all ties back to the mitigation approach we have in our holistic dashboard. Next slide, Sean. So as we mentioned in the last podcast, we've done a very good job of not having a ping pong ball effect between hybrid and virtual. That doesn't mean that shifts back and forth may not happen with more frequency, but when possible, we have been proactive in communicating, planning, and managing a transition, which has benefit not only for staff, but also for student in learning environment and for families. It's good to know what's coming and to be able to manage that transition. Even if you don't like what's coming, to know about it and to understand it is helpful information. And so we continue to consider all three key drivers. As you'll see, we're recommending and planning to move forward with a phased return. Reinforcing little evidence of transmission. That's true at Pine-Richland. It is true in Allegheny County, and a lot of the information we continue to read about nationally and even internationally supports the same findings. And again, our model, we've said this before, and it is definitively, emphatically true. Not all hybrids are the same, and our hybrid model was designed with very specific attention to mitigation. Next slide, Sean. So what supports, or the factors impacting return to hybrid, are the holistic dashboard, early signs of flattening the curve, and again, the reality of these 2 weeks that we're currently in were the 2 weeks following the holiday break. We have travel, we have quarantine related to travel, we have other concerns over surge following some of the informal social gatherings that occurred during those breaks. So we're right there at this point. All of this information has been reviewed with the Healthcare Leadership Council, including the healthcare experts that are a part of that team. We had our last meeting last Thursday, and even PDE and PA Department of Health continue to evolve in their suggestions and recommendations. One of the other points we wanted to reinforce is that the big three will continue, and all the mitigation to remain critically important. So even with the shift back for hybrid to hybrid, that does not suggest in any way a relaxing or loosening. We have to be as disciplined and attentive to the big three and the other mitigation strategies as we ever were. Even as vaccine distribution and availability continues, the reality is that the big three and other mitigation will remain in place for the foreseeable future. Next slide. We asked parents just to understand, based upon the level of community transmission, what their thinking was. And later tonight, our principals will be sending a communication to building staffs to gather feedback or suggestions on continued ways to strengthen mitigation. But when we ask parents just to understand, overall you can see for those students who were in some sort of in-person learning prior to Thanksgiving break, about 82.5% overall it would be their intention to send their child back. About 6% not, which means they would continue to learn in the virtual model with their same classroom teacher that they had. And then we see a pretty consistent percentage unsure. It's interesting to see, again, at the earlier grade levels, slight variations in the yes versus no at the upper secondary level, but again, relative consistency of parent perception. Next slide. So specifically, our plan is to, on Tuesday, January 19th, for grades K through 6, students would return to the hybrid model. And at the K to 3 level, that means either 5 days a week in person or alternating A to K or L to Z, depending on last name, in person and remote learning from home, or full virtual. and again, at the K-6 level, full virtual for some students was in the Pine-Richland Virtual Academy. But in the case of students who were involved in some degree of in-person learning, if those students were to remain at home because the parent's not yet comfortable with sending their child back to in-person learning, they would be learning just as they have for these past 6 weeks from their regular classroom teacher, the one who has been working with them. Grades 4 to 6, there are the two choices that we see. And then the recommendation for grades 7 through 12, the plan is for the transition to occur on Monday, January 25th. So again, we do know that there are some families who are not comfortable at this point sending their child back for any form of in-person learning. And so they would remain in the full virtual model, but that is remoting into the classroom with the currently assigned regular classroom teacher or teachers. And again, also to be clear, we have some students prior to Thanksgiving who were involved in 5-day in-person instruction based upon the intensity of needs. And so that option will continue to exist as we return to hybrid. So tomorrow morning, in addition to the podcast of this eBlast, there will be a Sapphire, our student information system. So we will ask parents to go into the Sapphire system for each student and select the choice available for that particular grade span at this time. And again, that will help us in communicating with our staff and making sure that we're planned and ready for K-6 on January 19th and for 7 to 12 on January 25th. Next slide. And so again, next steps and emerging recommendations. We are on that continuum. We're recommending a shift back to hybrid. We're excited for the opportunity to engage with our students in that in-person environment. We have to pay attention to all the mitigation strategies. We need to continue to pay attention to the self-checks, temperature checking at home in the morning, both staff and students, understanding that if you're symptomatic with anything, to stay home, and that we have to work through that process to err on the side of caution. Again, one of the lessons that we've learned throughout the past 5 months of supporting our students, families, and staff is that very often COVID-19 can present with mild cold-like symptoms. And it's very common for people to not recognize that those cold-like symptoms may in fact be COVID-19, and COVID-19 can impact different people in different ways. So again, really important that we pay attention to sort of that daily screening, self-check health process at home. We have had 30 independent volunteers. So these are parents who are independent board-approved volunteers. They already have gone through clearances. They have expressed a willingness to support us if needed. So if we have additional staffing or supervision needs and we cannot meet those needs through a regular process of substitute teachers or coverage, that we would have a group of individuals willing to provide support to the school. So more information will be sent to those 30 individuals, and we're going to work through some steps in that process. But just really want to express thanks and appreciation for the continued support we're receiving, the flexibility of families in a difficult time. Just want to say thank you. We will continue to monitor cases and contact trace. And as I mentioned tonight, the size of the school and the number of cases are now factors that we have to monitor and may impact decision making, and we will be communicating if necessary. And then lastly, as vaccines, the availability is expected to increase in the months to come. There will come a time when teachers and school staff members who have been identified as 1B in terms of the distribution schedule, at some point vaccines will become available for staff. And so we continue and will work with Allegheny County Health Department as they prepare for and work to understand an efficient, effective way to coordinate and manage that process. So again, that's something for those staff members who plan to receive the vaccine. So again, Sean, we can stop recording there, and if there are any questions or discussion from members of the board.
So I did also want to say, I'm on the Healthcare Leadership Council, and as Dr. Miller mentioned about the vaccines coming out, and communicating to the teachers, those who will be receiving the vaccine. The Healthcare Leadership Council, the experts there, said that they would help to inform some of that conversation, to help to reinforce the efficacy, any questions that the staff would have, the efficacy of the vaccination itself, just to help to educate and inform what the district will say to the teachers, but as well as in the future to the community and the students as well.
And Ms. Hathorn, we put a hyperlink in our last e-blast, and she's already embedded some of that information on the COVID-19 website as well. Mr. DiTullio, I think, has a...
Yeah, just a couple quick questions. The cases that were reported for the school in January with no students being in, I think it, and I'm not looking at the slide right now, but I think it said 6 students. Is that for the special needs students who are currently receiving? There have been 6, or is that just district-wide and we don't have as much information because students aren't in school?
Yeah, so for that slide, and for when we share in our weekly, now in the holistic dashboard, page 2, we've been updating that now every week. So those reflect all cases attributed to that school, whether the child was in school or not. So when you see that slide, Sean reshared it on the screen.
Right.
Those in December, those 66 cases total, 47 students, 19 staff. Almost all of those are students or staff who were never in the building at any time during that month. Those are all the community spread. The mostly what we see are families. So typically it's mom or dad was confirmed positive, children within the home or spouse or others within the home then are either confirmed positive or probable, and then that's what's coordinated. So that's what that reflects.
Okay, so to follow up on that, in looking at the school closures, is there credence being given to whether transmissions were occurring regardless of the numbers to in-school transmission, which again, prior to December when we shut back down, there was little evidence of that. So if we have completely isolated classes, student A and student B and student C and D were never in proximity to each other, is that going to weigh differently in the decision to, so say we go
Exactly.
to... Okay.
Exactly. So that is the critical point, and I think that's the most important thing that we don't want people to misunderstand. So there are no magic numbers. So Sean, can you go to the next slide? So let's use the example of the high school, since I had that up there sort of in the color-coded thing. Just because the high school accumulates a total of 10 cases of students and or staff within a 14-day rolling window, it does not mean that we would necessarily recommend or need to close that school for a period of time. It depends on the details. It depends on the information. Again, we've had Pine-Richland, very little evidence of in-school transmission. And in addition to that, we have had almost no need to quarantine. That's part of what makes our process so efficient and effective. Because the model builds physical distancing into the design, we have very little need in consultation with Allegheny County for widespread quarantine as a precaution. There are other districts who do different designs, and as a result of those different designs, there is far more disruption that can occur in terms of quarantine based upon their hybrid models. So the point of this slide is this is the general frame provided by PDE and PA Department of Health, but the big asterisk is we're going to look specifically at the cases, specifically at the building, what has occurred and what is it how's the contact tracing happened. Then we'll work with Allegheny County. Then we'll determine what or whether any additional action is necessary. Good, Greg?
Sorry. Yes. Thank you.
Sure. Dr. Mihalik. You're muted, Dr.
You're
Mihalik.
muted, Dr. Mihalik.
Sorry, I hit the wrong button. Yeah, could you please go to the slide with the 14-day example with the,
It's the next one.
yeah, thank you.
Yep.
So I get the fact that, you know, this design is really about responding to super spreader events that happen within the school. And so all of those details do matter, as you've outlined. So I think it's a good design. The question that I have is how students appear on the radar screen, or staff for that matter, as a case to begin with. So, for example, you know, someone would need to self-report or they report to the health department. We're not planning on doing any sort of systematic testing of students. And so what that means is that it's likely there to be asymptomatic presence of COVID in the schools, and it would be flying totally below the radar until we would see evidence of a cluster of a few students reporting symptoms. And so the question here is, you know, that to me is in some ways a reactive measure. And if that's okay, you know, if the healthcare experts say, well, that's okay, then, you know, I'm okay with that. But I just wanted to raise that to see if you had some thought on that, about that aspect.
Sure. So you mentioned a couple of different things in the comments. So first, I would say this framework of trying to discern what's happening in schools was designed by and distributed by PDE and PA Department of Health. I cannot speak to in any way, shape, or form the underlying math that's driving the thresholds that were included. The only distinction that the PDE and PA Department of Health have made from August through last month was they differentiated by overall building size, because prior to that differentiation, all buildings were treated the same, whether they had 300 students or 1,500 students. And that obviously, did not make sense. Our model, and this is so critical, and we've talked about this, our model is built with the understanding and expectation that asymptomatic individuals walk through the door every day. You have to assume it. We have to assume, and that's why when we look at the holistic dashboard and all of the green, that is the quality of our mitigation strategies, that even if someone in a room or in a building or multiple someones are asymptomatic positive, with masking, hand sanitizing, building cleaning, physical distancing, etc., cohorting at the younger grade levels, not having visitors in the building, et cetera, then we are taking more than appropriate measures to address health and safety within the school. When it comes to how do we learn of a case, again, from a theoretical standpoint, that should come either from within, that is the self-reporting of staff members and families, or it would come from Allegheny County Health Department as an encrypted email to us based upon their contact tracing efforts. What we have found, and there are myths in certain things, by and large, we have had incredible cooperation from our families in communicating results. That does not mean that there is not a staff member or a family that has failed to report information to us. We understand that, but we have had significant cooperation from our families, and that has allowed us to act as quickly as possible. There is no capacity at this point to consider frequent widespread testing, and if that were to occur, there are problems that come with that widespread test. I mean, more than we could list on. We would be at January 12th before we finish talking about it. So, so again, this is just one element as we think about the degree of community transmission. As we look back at our number of cases at different schools and spread over the 4+ months, again, I am very hopeful, based on everything we've learned and seen, that we'll be able to maintain some continuity in the model. And again, time will tell, but for the reasons identified, we think we are in a really good place to begin to make this transition.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say it just places the emphasis on how all of us in this community need to be diligent and upfront about any experiences of symptoms in order for us to be successful here. So thank you for clarifying.
Agreed. And if I could reinforce one point again, because I have heard it, we have heard it on our response team. More often than not, people have very, very mild cold symptoms, and then when they ultimately disclose that they just didn't think that could be COVID, because they attribute only some of the more significant and serious health outcomes to it. So just being mindful of any symptoms that are on the symptoms list that we have shared, that are on our website, and that are broadly communicated, that's what needs to be checked every day. That is not going to identify asymptomatic individuals, but it will help us because those with symptoms are screened through the process.
Mr. DiTullio, did you have another question?
Yeah, this is, I hope, very quickly. I just want to make sure I understand the number on this parent survey. 82% of parents or families that had children in the hybrid model or full in learning, 82% of them, which I believe was somewhere in the mid 80s to begin with. So we're talking.
No. Sean, can you please go to that slide? It's the one, it's like second or third from last. Yeah, that's it. Okay. So for those families or students who were already in the 100% virtual environment, we excluded them from this data. So those individuals that were in 100% virtual environment, they are interested in continuing in the virtual environment. So what we only specifically looked at in this data is all of these children prior to Thanksgiving break. All of these children were in some form of in-person learning, either 5 days a week or alternating day. So of those who were in some form of in-person learning, you can see that between 3 and 8.6% of those families, I'm looking at the no column, right now, 3 to 8.6 are not yet ready to send their child back to some form of in-person learning. So those students would continue learning remotely with the current teacher, the teachers that they're comfortable and used to, and all of that other stuff. It's the unsure column that, again, as people understand the mitigation strategies that are put in place and what we have designed, hopefully that helps give them the information that they need in order to make an informed decision about what's right for their child or family.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I can't remember the original numbers, but I think it was somewhere around 80% were in some sort of in-person schooling. So taking the unsure and splitting it in half, we're going to be somewhere around 70% of the student population I know it varies per building, but that's what we're.
That would be, I think that's a good back of the envelope kind of estimate. And then what we'll be doing, and that's the reason, having 100% participation with the Sapphire selection is going to be really important for us to understand exactly where each family is. So really important that we get those responses within our student information system. And then we will also be able to monitor attendance based on those who per selection should be in there. So we will continue. We monitor staff attendance very closely. We'll continue to monitor student attendance closely as well.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lyons.
Thank you, everyone. I will add on the topic of vaccines, if there's somewhere where we could advocate for the elevation of those in the front line with our students to that 1B status, as neighboring states have done. It's so important. What we're doing here is trying to get our children back into the schools in person because we think it is so critical, as great a model as we have for the virtual learning. And one of the biggest obstacles are the valid healthcare concerns of our frontline workers, our teachers with our students. I wish and would advocate that they be included in 1B. I understand that they are not, which I think is unfortunate. So a bit of an editorializing on my part there, but thank you for tolerating that, everyone. Ms. Williams, recognition of visitors. Do we have anyone in the waiting room?
We do not at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Hathorn.
Thank you. Tonight, it's my pleasure to recognize 8 employees who have served a combined 162 years in the district. I always enjoy putting together the biographies of our retirees. They have such unique backgrounds, and I always look to see if there's a common thread. And tonight, we have 4 retirees who are retiring alongside their spouses, several who are connected to farms or a ranch, and one who is a former member of an all-girl band. So quite interesting tonight. So let's find out some more. First up, we have Mr. Jack Dyer, who has been an integral part of the custodial and grounds crew. Those who worked with him say he took wonderful care of the high school grounds and was committed to helping others and making certain Pine-Richland High School looked its best. Mr. Dyer was always willing to jump in and help when the other schools needed help as well. Pine-Richland is Mr. Dyer's second career stop, as he worked as an insulator with the Pittsburgh Building and Construction Trades Organization for 40 years. He retired there in May of 2008 and began working at Pine-Richland a month later. He retires tonight alongside his spouse, who also works at the high school. Now, Mr. Dyer, if you're logged on, would you like to say a few words?
All right, yes, I would. I just wanted to say it's been a fantastic experience. I really enjoyed coming to work. That's a lot of people don't get the opportunity to say that, but I really did enjoy it, and I wanted to thank everyone from the athletics, grounds, and custodial people I work with. Outstanding group of people, as well as the administration. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. I think our next retiree knows Mr. Dyer pretty well. That's Mrs. Mary Jean Dyer, who has been working at Pine-Richland High School for Pine-Richland for 28 years, and knows and has begun serving as what was termed a substitute bus matron in 1991, helping students with disabilities. In 92, she was hired as an instructional assistant at Washington Elementary School, and then she transferred to Hance Elementary in 1993, then moved to the high school in 2004 as a computer assistant, and then in 2013, she was selected to serve as the attendance secretary, and that's how many of us know her. Those who know her best, though, says she manages to keep track of 1,500 students daily, and her commitment and dedication to the students, staff, and families of Pine-Richland High School has just been incredible. Mrs. Dyer says the common thread through all of her most cherished memories is watching the reaction of the students when they finally understand how to do something. And she says she can relate all too well because each new opportunity she was presented with pushed her to learn and grow. And in retirement, she hopes to spend more time with her husband, Jack, and their children, who are all graduates. Now, Mrs. Dyer, would you like to say a few words?
Wow, yes, I can't believe the time has come that this is it. But I want to thank you for Pine-Richland for everything. I thoroughly enjoyed all the positions that I had at Pine-Richland. I met a lot of wonderful people along the way. I truly enjoyed and loved working with the students and helping them. I will definitely miss my fellow coworkers. And I'm proud and honored to have worked and have the privilege to work for Pine-Richland High School. I truly enjoyed all my years there. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we're going to move on to the middle school. Our next retiree was hired in 1986. After filling in for various long-term substitute positions, Mrs. Sue Bartley even completed her student teaching assignment right here at Pine-Richland in 1979. Since she has taught various social studies classes at the secondary level, with most of her career being teaching at 8th grade American history. And during her 34-year teaching career, she enjoyed working with fellow teachers, and she says she'll miss those students. And colleagues say she is a legend at Pine-Richland Middle School for being tough, but her students appreciate her years down the road. And students will often drop in from the high school, even asking to see Mrs. Bartley. Her colleagues will miss her stories about her farm, and most importantly, ask her not to forget about the middle school when she is baking her delicious pies and cookies. And they're in luck because Mrs. Bartley says she plans to spend more time cooking in retirement as well as traveling and reading. So she hopes to spend more time with her daughters, and she's also retiring alongside her husband, Samuel, tonight, who's retiring from Pine-Richland. Mrs. Bartley, do you want to say anything? And you know what? Oh,
I think I'm here.
you're here.
Okay. I've enjoyed it. I miss everybody. I love the kids, and I will miss teaching them, and I hope they don't miss me too much. Bye.
Okay, make sure you keep on the line for Mr. Bartley a little bit later on here.
I'll keep them on.
Okay. Our next retiree has served 28 years at Pine-Richland. In addition to serving as a physical education teacher at the high school and middle school, Mrs. Jeanette Burgess has had the opportunity to serve as a sponsor for high school intramurals, a pool supervisor, announcer for swim meets, and a lifeguard trainer in the high school aquatics program. Interestingly, Mrs. Burgess helped start the first rowing team at Pine-Richland High School in 2001. And that's when students approached her to form and coach the team. And he recalls having fellow teachers and administrators travel to the Head of Ohio Regatta to cheer on the team. And Mrs. Burgess herself competed with the Masters team through Three Rivers Rowing. And the Pine-Richland Health and Physical Education Department reached out and expressed their appreciation for Mrs. Burgess, who is a passionate educator, saying that she's made a difference in the lives of students she has taught, and it's been a true inspiration. She says that she appreciates the support of her daughter through the years, and in retirement, she's looking forward to traveling, listen to this, to Northern California to help harvest grapes on her brother's ranch. So I'll turn it over to her so she can tell you a little.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate being here tonight and want to thank my colleagues. I loved working at Pine-Richland. All of those 28 years, everything that was on there, it was just wonderful. I miss my colleagues. I miss my students. And in the words of one of my students who I ran into this summer, she said it was obvious that you loved your job and it showed through your lessons. And that just made me cry. Try not to cry now, but it has been a wonderful, wonderful life being a family member at Pine-Richland. And my colleagues, the administration, I can't say enough about your support through the years for our programs, and your wonderful feedback was always positive, and it made the years fly by so quickly. So thank you all. You've made my life a real wonder, It was the best job in the world. So thank you again. And I'm looking forward to traveling, spending time with my grandchildren, and just enjoying my life. Thank you for recognizing my accomplishments and commemorating my time with PR. God bless.
You're welcome, and thank you. Our next retiree, Mrs. Carolyn Telerico, began working at Pine-Richland as a substitute teacher and was hired as an instructional assistant in 1998. While she spent more than 22 years as an instructional assistant, education was her second career. She grew up on a small farm where she sold flowers and Christmas trees with her sisters and brothers who also sang together. Now, her sisters, Elaine and Joni and herself formed an all-girl band and traveled throughout the United States and Canada, playing at fairs, conventions, and military bases. Those who worked with her say that her gentle, sweet nature will be missed by the students she took under her wing, especially at the middle school. Colleagues say she gave the best level of care to all of her students and always went above and beyond to connect with the students who she didn't even see regularly. When asked, she was always willing to lend an extra hand in pursuit of our mission to focus on learning for every student every day. In retirement, Mrs. Telerico plans to help others and take some day trips with her husband, Ralph, and their dog, Jasmine, and to complete those never-ending home projects. So, Mrs. Telerico, I saw her on.
And I really appreciate all the opportunities I had at Pine-Richland, and get this, most of that time I got to work hands-on, have fun with the kids, laugh with the kids, and that's my wish that will continue with everyone else in the very near future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next up, we turn to Eden Hall Upper Elementary School, where we have Mr. Samuel Bartley, who began working at Pine-Richland in 2017 as a paraprofessional in the Life Skills Program, and he assisted in grades 4, 5, and 6 at Eden Hall Upper Elementary School. His career began at Fox Chapel Area School District, where he served as a teacher, paraprofessional, grant writer, and interim transition coordinator for grades 9 through 12 for 11 years. Uniquely, Mr. Bartley is a supernumerary, which is an extra with the Pittsburgh Opera, a soloist for Thompson Miller Funeral Home, and serves also as a preacher by invitation at local churches. Those who know him best say they will miss his sincere friendliness and generous spirit. He is a welcoming part of each day and showed dedication to students, teachers, and fellow staff members. In retirement, Mr. Bartley would like to do some more traveling, church work, and gardening. Now, he's planning to spend more time with his wife, Sue, who we just heard from earlier, who is also retiring, and their daughters. So, Mr. Bartley, I'll give you the floor.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for being so kind over the years. I enjoyed working with everyone. The administration was always wonderful and so supportive, always friendly. I had a moment to chat going by in the hallway. I just appreciate everybody. I'll miss all of my students, and I'll miss working closely with teachers and being so involved in the classes. And I'll miss everybody. So thank you so very much.
Thank you. Also retiring is high school paraprofessional Diana Workmeister and Eden Hall Upper Elementary custodian William Pinkle. They could not join us tonight, but they can. But you can check out their biographies and all of our retirees' biographies online. Some of our senior leadership team will be contacting all of the retirees as we have a special gift to deliver to you along with the biography. It's just a small token of our big appreciation to you, and we wish you the very best. So thank you for joining us tonight. We will miss you.
Thank you all so much. Thank you for joining us, sharing a few words. Your biographies are frankly inspiring. Clear one thing that comes through all of it is the appreciation and value that you've put on serving your community and serving Pine-Richland. You've done well. Enjoy your retirement. You've earned it. Ms. Hawthorne, do you want to just keep going?
Yeah, next we have board appreciation, and I'm not sure if Dr. Miller,
Sure.
he wanted to say a little bit before I started.
Yeah, so I shared a little bit of this at the joint committee meeting, but there is so much happening in our world and so much happening in our country right now. The stress, the tension that exists in so many parts of life seems significant. Public health, jobs, the economy, race and racism and discrimination, politics and governance. You know, the terrible events of the last week highlight the tension that exists. And as I reflect as a leader, I think about the critical nature of civil discourse, that ability to engage in dialogue, no matter how differing the opinions are, and to be able to engage in a way that is ultimately healthy and allows things to move forward. So with January in Pennsylvania being School Board Recognition Month, I just found my thoughts going to the recognition of our board members and our cohesive board. Healthy and effective governance in our schools is critical. And on behalf of our senior leadership team and our staff, I just want to express incredibly deep appreciation for the commitment and sacrifice of time, energy, thinking, engagement in service of our students, schools, and community. People in general would have no idea the commitment and sacrifice necessary to serve in the role of school board director, and to do that at a high level of performance. It is truly, public meetings are the tip of the iceberg in terms of the commitment of time and energy in understanding the organization, understanding schools, seeing the connections between various parts of how schools operate. And because of humility, members of our community and staff may not even remember that our board has been recognized for its performance. And in that recognition in Pennsylvania, in that award that was achieved, one of the pieces of that I wanted to highlight today, and I'm thinking about it not just because of Pine-Richland, but I'm thinking about it because the DECIDE model, the acronym DECIDE, is something that is the very best of what governance can be and look like in difficult times. And so for our community, for our staff, for anybody who's listening, but as reinforcement, thanks, and appreciation directly to our board, I just want to quickly walk through that DECIDE model. It sits on the desktop screen when we're together in DeWitt. It sits in a little wood engraved holder in front of every board seat. It is the perspective by which our board members see the organization and see the community. One of the things that Mr. Kashani has done a great job as a member of the board is helping plan workshops. And one of the elements that he's embedded is the idea of empathy and putting ourselves in a position of others to consider different viewpoints. And so for those in the community who do not necessarily understand what board service is and looks like, it definitely is not one or two meetings a month for an hour to 3 hours. It is about a total commitment to understanding and researching and learning and listening and considering. So the DECIDE model, the D is for debate the issue. The E is for engage with the team of 10 plus 1. That's the board and me and Mrs. Williams. The C is for collaboration with stakeholders and administration. The I is for innovate to find solutions that move us forward. The next D is to decide the issue and move on, regardless of individual position. And the last one, the one that I think is so powerful when it's owned and embraced as it is by our board. And Mr. DiTullio is the person that often comes to my mind when it comes to that last E. Elevate the people and occasions that demonstrate these ideals. So the DECIDE model is a model of action and behavior that our board developed on its own. It doesn't exist out there. It is homegrown, and it demonstrates the beliefs, the values, and the principles for effective governance. The DECIDE model is not in place for the easy things. The DECIDE model is in place and is tested when we come to challenge and difficult topics. And again, as the first part of board recognition, on behalf of someone who better understands what it is to serve an organization, thank you sincerely, specifically, for your commitment and the way that you practice governance at the Pine-Richland School District. Ms. Hathorn?
Thank you. That was very nicely stated. And as Dr. Miller mentioned, each January we do set aside this time to recognize members of the board during School Board Appreciation Month. And the statewide campaign is entitled PA School Public Schools Success Starts Here. And the campaign does remind us that our elected school directors play a significant role in creating an environment where those successes can happen. And that success is happening right here at Pine-Richland through the support of the board via a multitude of initiatives. And student representatives wanted to share their appreciation of the board's support of their organizations and for supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion across our schools. So Mr. Stovener is going to click play on our student presentation.
The video is going to play in a small square, so if you wanted to blow it up, you can click on the pin once the video starts playing.
Hi, I'm Danielle Bryant. I am a current senior at Pine-Richland High School. I'm also the leader and founder of the Black Student Union. I'd first like to say thank you to the school board for allowing new clubs and programs to be implemented at the school. This is truly making our school a better place. I'd also like to say thank you to Mr. Salopek for being our club sponsor and taking us underneath his wing. The BSU is a great addition to the school district. It is not meant to isolate minorities, but is instead meant to create collaboration, unity, and awareness within the leaders, students, teachers. This is the mission and purpose of the Black Student Union. The mantra is stronger together, and we live by this at every single meeting. This is meant to have our school to be a safe place for students, no matter the color, and create dialogue and understanding from all students. Thank you so much for your time.
Hello, I am Sandrine Bonampeka. I'm a senior and a leader of Pine-Richland's BSU Club. I'll be telling you about a project our club has participated in and a service project we're currently working on that's around diversity, equity, and inclusion. The project we worked on a while ago, we were tasked to create a video of us reading a children's book that's for the elementary school. The books were diverse. I myself, including other members of the club, participated in this project. I read Hair Love by Matthew Cherry. Currently, we're developing a project with the goal of distributing skin tone color pencils for the side of a coloring book to all elementary schools, Oxford, Hans, and Richland. We want children to have more options when it comes to coloring certain characters other than just light brown, dark brown, beige, or tan. We want to help prevent children from feeling left out in any way. And we thank the Pine-Richland School Board for the support they show student activities and new organizations. Thank you.
Hello there, my name is AJ Lachima and I'm a senior at Pine-Richland High School. I've been attending Pine-Richland for about 7 years, and within the past year or so, I've been president of the Gay Shade Alliance Club up at the high school. Within this club, our goal is to educate our classmates on the LGBTQ+ community, how to be an ally, and to provide a safe space for all of our students, no matter what their identity is. As president, I get to meet with the sponsors of our club, Mr. John Dolphin and Mrs. Carolyn Walshons, along with the rest of the officers to plan out the meetings for the year. In addition to running the Gay Shade Alliance, I was invited to join the Pine-Richland Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Leadership Council this year. Within this council, student leaders from the high school, like me, are able to collaborate with other teachers and staff members throughout the 6 buildings in the school district. We also get to collaborate with members from the school board and residents living in Pine-Richland Township. During our last meeting, we took the time to introduce ourselves, and we focused on coming up with different ways that teachers can include diversity and different cultures within the learning curriculum throughout the school district. I also personally wanted to thank the Pine-Richland School Board for supporting student activities and organizations. Within these student activities, we are able to interact with one another and to have fun, make new friends, and along with new memories. Without your support, student activities within Pine-Richland School District would not be what they are today. So again, thank you so much for your support, and we really appreciate it.
Hi, everyone. My name is Drew Siegel. I'm a member of Peer-to-Peer. I'm a senior this year at the high school. I'm a 4-year member of Peer-to-Peer, and this year is my second year as an executive, and I'm the head of the resiliency team of Peer-to-Peer. Peer-to-Peer's focus is one of inclusion by breaking down social barriers, by attempting to eliminate social injustices in our school and in our district, and promoting respect for all within our school and within our district. Usually what we would do in a typical peer-to-peer year is our big project, I'm sure you've heard about it, is the Color Run. It raises money for AFSP, which is the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. We attempt to get as many kids as we can. We've had a few hundred in the years past. And what we do is we just have fun and try to have everybody, no social cliques or groups, and just kind of have everybody having fun, running around, and kind of letting loose. This usually takes place in May. Now, obviously, with the coronavirus pandemic, we've kind of had to change our plans a lot. But we've always done a variety of projects, so it's nothing new for us, and we're very creative. So we've been attempting this year with a few other clubs, was virtually reading to students at the elementary schools. We've done this in the past, but it's a great thing because, it's really tough on the kids that are younger than us, because usually we'll go in and we'll read to the elementary school kids just to kind of show, the opportunities at the high school and what they have waiting for them in this district. And so this year we tried to do a similar thing by reading virtually to them. Another thing we're going to do in the future for whenever we get back is we're going to do a giant photo mural to just remind kids of some of the memories and some of the great activities that they can participate in at the high school. And all of this, again, is to try to include as many people as we can in the activities that we do at the high school, and to try to break down some of the social cliques that often get formed when you're in the high school environment. I want to, on behalf of Peer-to-Peer, I want to send a special shout out and a special thank you to the Pine-Richland School Board, who not only support us, but they support all of the activities at the high school. Without you guys, I'm not sure if we could have the multitude of variety of activities. There's something for everybody at the high school, with clubs and, again, just a variety of activities that take place here. Really, everybody can kind of find their niche. And it makes the school a better place, and it makes the school unique to the districts around the area. Again, thank you so much. Please stay safe. I hope you and your families are well. And thank you. Have a great new year.
Very nice, excellent job from our students, and great overview of what their organizations and some of their projects are coming up. Also tonight, we have the Pine-Richland Education Association President Chris Vins here tonight to say a few words.
Thank you, Ms. Hathorn. On behalf of the Pine-Richland Education Association, I want to thank you for your time, work, and commitment to our staff, students, and community. As a sign of our appreciation, the Pine-Richland Education Association has donated $450 to the North Hills Community Outreach in the board's name. The North Hills Community Outreach is an organization that supports families in our local community who are experiencing challenges. We felt this donation was appropriate due to the current circumstances of the pandemic, and it is a reflection of your commitment to our community. I'll be brief, so I just want to, again, thank you for your commitment. I understand tonight is certainly not the only night that you guys meet, plan, and work, and your commitment goes well beyond these board meetings that take place monthly and bi-monthly. So again, thank you very much for your commitment. Now I'd like to introduce Susan Torsha, who's representing the Pine-Richland Support Professionals.
Thank you, Mr. Binns. Good evening. My name is Susan Torsha, and I'm the secretary in the High School Guidance Counseling Office. I'm pleased to be here tonight representing the Pine-Richland Educational Support Professionals Association. The PRESPA is comprised of paraeducators, instructional assistants, library assistants, personal care assistants, secretaries, custodians, maintenance, and grounds crew. On behalf of our association, I would like to express our sincere thanks and appreciation to the directors of the school board. I would also like to congratulate Mr. Lyons and Mrs. Misbach on continuing in their positions as president and vice president. To all the members of the school board, we wish to express our profound gratitude for your dedication and commitment to the Pine-Richland School District. As evidenced by our mission statement to focus on learning for every student every day, you provide leadership and inspiration not only to the students, but the staff and community as well. While we all have been challenged by the changes over the past 10 months, your insight, flexibility, and support have not gone unnoticed. We can be proud to call Pine-Richland the place we learn and work. We thank you for your continued service to the growth and vision of our school system. In honor of the school board, the Pine-Richland Educational Support Professionals Association will award a $500 scholarship to a member of the class of 2021 in June to pursue their continuing education. Last year's recipient, Grace Barkowski, enrolled at Ohio University. We thank you again for your service, and I would also like to congratulate all of the retirees. It's been a pleasure to know and work with all of you. Next, I would like to introduce Michelle Plowy, parent-teacher representative. Thank you.
Hi. So before I do my thank you, I just wanted to put a thank you out to Dr. Miller and Ms. Hathorn. Your coordination of all of this is amazing, and congratulations to all the retirees. And just a personal note, the peer-to-peer group made such an impact on Wexford Elementary students this year for our Read to Feed. They made a personal video and they all got to see it. It was beautiful. I'm not sure if anybody can hear me. But so thank you. And on behalf of the PTO and PSA associations, we would like to thank the board for your continued service and dedication. As we all know, it's been a challenging year, but it's been through the guidance of Pine-Richland board members that we thrive. And not many other districts, I think, can actually say that. And we should be proud of everything that you've accomplished by your constant dedicated efforts. You actually inspired the PTO and the PSA associations. We had to get a little creative this year with fundraising, but we wanted to be resilient and also think outside the box and find ways to still make staff feel appreciated, as well as give you parent feedback. So I hope we're doing our job as best we can, but thank you for your commitment to Pine-Richland. We are truly grateful. Thank you.
Now we'd like to introduce Mrs. Deb Lund, who's here with the Pine-Richland Opportunities Fund. Hi, Deb.
Hi, everybody. This has been an awesome board meeting to be a part of and listening to. I reiterate all of our congratulations to the retirees. What wonderful stories, and I hope that our community takes the time to look at their biographies, because it's really touching. I don't really know. I know every year we exercise this opportunity to thank the school board. And as I was preparing comments for this evening, I felt like I was being repetitive of the years in the past when I've stood before you to thank you so much. It just seems hardly enough when we express our gratitude to you all for the service that you give our community as school board directors and leaders and friends and neighbors. I am certain that when you enlisted in the opportunity to become a school board director, that you would have had no idea what was in store for you. This year alone has just presented just incredible challenges for our world and our nation and our community. And yet, through all of that, your leadership, your dedication, your direction, and your continued vision for excellence enables our students to still learn, still collaborate, still grow, and still thrive. And that is not lost on us as a community, and certainly not us as your partners with the Opportunities Fund. We're so proud to be a part of the community, and we thank you so much for your partnership and help with our mission of recognizing outstanding ideas in the classroom and outstanding ideas for our students. We are so fortunate to have such a dedicated group of people who lead our school district, including our administration too on that. On behalf of all of us trustees, we want to thank you endlessly for your leadership and your commitment to our students and to all of us. So thank you so very, very, very much.
Thank you, Mrs. London. Again, on behalf of the district, thank you to our Pine-Richland School Board, which is made up of President Peter Lyons, Vice President Christine Misbach, Treasurer Mark Kashani, Dr. Ben Campbell, Mr. Greg DeToyo, Mr. Matt Mahalik, Dr. Carla Meyer, Mr. Matt Moy, Mrs. Tasha Swope, and Mrs. Barb Williams, who serves as board secretary. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, everyone. Mr. Binns, Mrs. Torsha, Mrs. Plowy, Deb, Mrs. Lund, thank you. It's humbling to be recognized by groups that themselves do so much in service of the district. I want to point again to my 8 colleagues and thank them. It's certainly motivating to support this district, the students, the administration. Sometimes when the work is hardest, it's very motivating to know you have 8 colleagues who expect the best of you and are working just as hard themselves. And that's certainly true of this group. You inspire me to continue the work, and it's never been harder this year. So thank all of you in turn. Item 1.06, correspondence. Mrs. Williams.
The following people emailed thanking the board: the Gower family and Laura Oland. Karen Dudkowski emailed thanking the board and also about the return to school. And Tracy Petzuk emailed the board regarding the return to school.
Thank you. And before we go on to the first voting item, Mr. Kashani, can we get a present?
Present.
Thank you.
There you go. Awesome. Item 1.07 is a motion to approve the meeting minutes as attached for December 14th, finance and combined meetings.
Second.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
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 Yes. Opposed? Motion carries. First item on our agenda is a strategic plan update regarding the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Joint Committees meeting. I'd just like to turn it over, I think, Dr. Pasquinelli.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Lyons. I'll take that. Just wanted to give the board and community update. So this is a key strategic initiative for us around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And prior to this meeting, we concluded a committee meeting, and it was a wonderful opportunity to discuss progress to date, to listen to feedback from our board as we make plans for moving this initiative forward. So we hit on some key topics. We have been collecting data through audits and other sources of information to really understand here at Pine-Richland where we have opportunities for improvement. We've identified key research buckets that through our work we have really feel good about the right direction that we're going toward that research. So we have, over the course of the last, probably 6 to 8 months, worked some short-term and long-term initiatives to move forward. Again, feedback we get is community says, hey, we want to see action and we want to feel change and we want the same thing. So there have been some short-term actions that we've taken, but at the same time, we have to think strategically about a sustainable process that will ensure that this change happens and it really improves the culture and experience for all of our students here at Pine-Richland. Tonight, there are a couple of policies related to this initiative. One is Policy 103, that is in its third and final read, and a policy that is a voluntary policy that we're going to start the conversation is around educational equity, which we're excited to use the information that the PA School Board Association has created to help guide our work, and our work will help guide back into what our final policy looks like as we make it appropriate for Pine-Richland. So we're excited to spend that time. I think we've got some good momentum, wonderful partnerships happening with our Anti-Racism Coalition group of parents in Pine-Richland that have really partnered with us. We've reached out to universities. We have reached out to other local school districts that are, again, working through this same process. So the DECIDE acronym will come up over and over again because these are some challenging conversations, but to get to the place where we want to get for our students, it's going to take everybody's effort and engagement, and we do appreciate that.
Thank you, Dr. P. I agree. That was a good meeting, and it is a beginning in a way. As I was saying before about, one of the best things about this job is it offers opportunities for growth, personal growth, and understanding better. And this is certainly an area where I expect to see that and know that we have a board and administration open to doing so. Mr. Kashani, Finance.
Yes, sir. Item 3.01 is a motion to approve the financial reports dated November 30th, 2020 and paid accounts for December, January in the amount of $1,417,164.26 as listed.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 3.02, motion to approve the budget transfers in the amount of $7,752 as attached.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 3.03, motion to exonerate the local real estate tax collectors for Richland Township and the Township of Pine for the 2020 tax duplicate and to turn over the 2020 delinquent tax listings to the Georgia Delinquent Tax Service for collection.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 3.04, the motion to approve the 2020 Pine-Richland School District Property Tax Rebate Program resolution as presented.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed? The motion carries.
Item 3.05, motion to approve a resolution pursuant to Section 311, Section D1, Special Session Act of 2006, certifying Pine-Richland School Board will not raise local taxes at a rate to exceed the school district's Act 1 index of 3% for 2021-2022 as presented.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Mark, could you provide the background on this resolution? I know we pass this every year, right?
That's right. This does not mean that there will be a tax rate increase. However, it does limit, by passing this, it will limit our ability to increase more than 3%. Without this, then that constraint would not be upon us as we discuss the budget for next year.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor say yes.
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 Yes. Opposed? The motion carries.
And item 3.06 is just a reminder that our next Finance Committee meeting is scheduled for March 1st at 6 p.m. And we will be definitely getting in the weeds on the budget and the capital funding plan.
Thank you, Mark.
My pleasure.
Dr. Meyer, academic achievement.
Okay, item 4.01 is a motion to approve the 2021-2022 high school program of studies and middle school program of studies as attached. The high school and middle school program of studies are reviewed and approved annually. And I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Pasquinelli to lead the discussion.
Second.
Thank you, Christine.
Sorry, I got ahead of myself.
Okay, no problem.
That's all right. We get excited about this, Dr. Meyer, so I understand your enthusiasm. Thank you. Yeah, if you could pull that presentation up, Sean, please. We are fortunate tonight to have all of our secondary administrators, so I'm just going to kick it off, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Sevilla, who is going to talk, take the first section, and then we'll go from there. Sean, go ahead to that next slide. So I'm just so proud to be part of this team. The program of studies at the secondary level is what I consider such a useful document. And when we think about modifying it year after year, we think about what do we learn from previous experiences? What do we hear from students? What do we hear from families? You know, we want this to be the document that families go to as they make decisions about courses, both opportunities for learning inside the classroom and for whether it's activities or athletics, opportunities beyond Pine-Richland. I mean, you name it, we have integrated it into this program of studies. You can see here bulleted are the changes that we've made year after year, and you're going to hear tonight a focus on planning for transformation of the learning experiences for kids as a result of COVID-19. You're going to hear about further integration of the portrait of a graduate and how that links directly to our program of studies. And we're going to talk more about how do we engage all students around the diverse opportunities that we offer here through learning inside and outside the classroom. So really excited to share with you. We're going to move quickly. Sean, go ahead to the next one. This slide is just an example of some of the things that we've done with our staff and with our families and with our students. So we really want to teach everyone on how to use this document because, again, the more we integrate things like career standards and graduation plan and help students over the course of their time here at Pine-Richland to figure themselves out to the best of our ability, then that gets them as quickly as possible on that right path. Now, some kids, they don't find that path until years after high school, and that's okay. But we want to make every effort to try to help guide them and help them figure out what that path could be as they go through their experience. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Sevilla. Everybody, we are going to move quickly, and then we'll close up and show you a preview of the documents.
Thank you, Dr. Pasquinelli. Sean, if you could advance to the next slide, please. Our graduation policy was approved in August of 2014. Some of you may recall that at that time we were running different requirements based upon a student's graduating class prior to 2017. In the program of studies, we provide a table describing the graduation credit requirements, and we provide some additional details related to Chapter 4 regulations around academic standards and also the Keystone exams. Based upon federal PA regulations and our current graduation requirements policy, Keystone proficiency scores are recorded on our transcripts. This began with the class of 2017. The state does continue to provide updates related to their statewide graduation requirements, but our local requirements continue to guide our work with our high school students and families. Next slide, please. We strongly encourage students and their families to do the heavy lifting in February and March to alleviate worries and stress and concern over the summer about schedules. Students have a variety of resources to use in addition to the program of studies, such as their teachers and school counselors. Near the end of the 2013-14 school year, a scheduling committee at the high school was established, and this committee consisted of administrators, counselors, teachers, and we also received input from parents and students on how to improve our scheduling process. The scheduling process starts with development of the program of studies and ends with completed schedules in August and hopefully happy students and parents. We continue to use the lessons learned from the previous program of studies and scheduling process to make recommendations for improvement each year. Our goal is to provide all students and families with the information and resources they need in order to select the most appropriate courses based on each student's needs and interests. We simply call this right student, right course. This slide here outlines our timeline for completing the scheduling process in order to provide students and families with the time they need to make the best choices possible. Next slide, please.
Sean, we lost the image.
Oh.
Thank you.
We go one more, Sean, please.
Next slide.
Okay, great. Thank you. Right student, right course also means that we must evaluate our course selections to ensure that we are offering courses that students need and want. This slide shows historical information for the number of courses at the AP, honors, and academic levels listed in our program of studies versus how many were offered in a given school year. Next slide, please. As another measure of effectiveness, we continue to track the number of add drop requests we receive each year. We see from the data that the changes that have been implemented over the past several years have made a significant positive impact on decreasing the number of add drop requests. We continuously talk about spending the time with students and families in the spring, in that February-March timeframe, so they're confident in their choices and really ready to go in August. This extra time and effort at that point has helped to decrease the number of add drop requests in August and early September, and it helped our students to quickly settle into routines and procedures of the new school year and new classes. Additionally, we have been tracking more specific data related to add drop requests. We track when the requests are submitted, such as days 1 through 10, as well as compare the number of requests to the number of completions of changes actually made. So this continues to help us further refine our scheduling process and ensure that the right students are in fact in the right classes. Now I'd like to invite Mrs. Bowman to continue our discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Seviller. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to talk briefly about connections that Dr. Pasquinelli shared in his introduction. In March of 2020, education as we had known it prior to March 13th changed drastically. And the image on the right of this slide represents performance excellence. It includes a red star, which indicates transformational shifts that have occurred at Pine-Richland as a result of COVID-19. As a school community, we've cycled through spirals of change as we continue to turn challenges into opportunities over these past 10 months. We continue to learn and improve as we ask ourselves, really, what should Pine-Richland's educational program look like post-COVID-19? A kindergarten through grade 12 committee has been formed focusing on transition, transformation, and innovation. This team is collaborating to develop future-focused ideas and solutions based on continuity of high-quality learning experiences for our students. With the added flexibility related to established hybrid and virtual capacities, Ideas that this committee has come up with include things like offering our families options for conferences, such as meeting virtually, continued technology integration, and considering the concept of personalized learning pathways for our students. The list here on the slide includes examples of ideas and options that are being considered. While this is still in development, we want to make note of the Transition, Transformation, and Innovation Committee as we're thinking about and presenting our program of studies, as we expect opportunities for high school students and families to be available in the future. Next slide, please. The Portrait of a Graduate is a foundation to our strategic plan and is included in the Student Progress and Engagement category. The specific long-term goal in the plan is to measure and respond to students' holistic indicators. We all know that a quality education is so much more than content area knowledge and skills. The 4 areas of our Portrait of a Graduate are skills, knowledge, health and wellness, and personal qualities and characteristics. These areas are embedded within the 2021-2022 program of studies, and each category reflects the well-rounded expectations of a quality educational experience. Examples of how our program of studies aligns to the graduate portrait include study and communication skills that are integrated into all of our courses, career awareness, specifically the career clusters that are highlighted in our program of studies, our time management planner, and leadership and involvement through extracurricular activities. As a very relevant and timely example of this, our students continue to develop their time management and organizational skills, which are critical to success in our hybrid and virtual platforms. These skills help to strengthen student resiliency and confidence. Next slide, please, Sean. Student involvement in extracurricular activities is linked to our mission, vision, and our pride values. As we all know, learning occurs inside and outside the classroom. And our high school is so fortunate to be able to provide over 40 unique activities and clubs, each providing diverse opportunities and engagement for all of our students. Just as one brief example, the PRTV Club is an extension of the video production course. Recently, they provided students the opportunity to engage in a 48-hour film challenge where students are invited to write and shoot, edit, and share a video in just 48 hours. The program of studies section includes a direct link to the activities and club page on the website where students and families can learn about those 40 clubs directly from student leaders. As we've heard this evening, diversity, equity, and inclusion is a key strategic initiative. The diverse selection of extracurricular activities at the high school include a wealth of opportunities for students to lead and engage with peers in areas of personal interest. You had the opportunity to hear from some of those student leaders today as they thanked all of you for your service to our school district. Each year, students come to the building administrators and request the opportunity to initiate clubs. And for example, our newly formed Black Student Union was initiated this past summer at the request of Danielle, who you saw this evening, as well as Sandrine and a small group of other students that are now that club's leadership team. Thank you. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Salopek.
Thank you, Mrs. Bowman. Mr. Stobner, next slide, please. Good evening, everyone. We are very excited to share with you the new updates to our program of studies and to the rest of our Pine-Richland community. This document provides a wealth of resources and information related to the experience for our students at our high school. In detail, some of the critical resources available to our students, families, and staff through the program of studies would be the graduation and career planning document that you can see here on this slide. A recent addition to this document is the incorporation of the career clusters, which link valuable information for our students to consider when planning their courses. From here, when engaging in conversations with families and with school counselors through the scheduling process, students are able to quickly access information related to the career interest of their choice and may engage in dialogue in potential course selections that will best prepare them for their experiences beyond Pine-Richland High School. This is a living document for our students and for our staff, particularly our counselors. We often see changes to this document throughout a student's educational career at the high school, and ultimately, our goal is for the students to take ownership of this document as they work towards meeting the graduation requirements. This resource is used closely with the Career Planning and Healthy Living Time Management Planner that you will see on the next slide. Next slide, please. Considering the wide variety of clubs, activities, groups, organizations, athletics, you name the wide variety of things that our students participate in, they are very busy. Coupled with the dynamic rigor and academic expectations that each of their classes hold, our students are able to use this resource to help plan their day, to help stay organized, and to help process their thinking throughout their entire day as they're managing all the different activities that they are involved in. Drew Siegel gave a great example of that in his message a little bit earlier this evening in coming from the peer-to-peer perspective, that students are quite busy. So we're happy to provide this time management planner as it is in direct alignment with our health and physical education vision of a healthy lifestyle for our students, both mentally and physically. Next slide, please. As you can see here, our program of studies provides different avenues for students to approach as they progress throughout their high school years. So for example, here we have 4 different students entering Pine-Richland High School at the same level of a science class. And from there, you're going to see 4 different avenues that students may take based on their development through their high school years. For example, in the orange color, you can see that a student here, after an initial entry into the science program, is moving to a more advanced pathway. In yellow, you can see a student ending their science career after 3 years, because at that point they would have met grad requirements and they may be focusing their talents and interests elsewhere. Student number 3 completes all 4 courses along the same pathway. So that being said, would have 4 consecutive experiences within science throughout their 9 through 12 years. And then finally, number 4 in blue, this is where we can see a student potentially taking a step back and taking a less advanced pathway. Maybe their interest or ideas have developed in other areas that they might step back slightly in science. So overall, we're very proud of the flexibility that the program of studies provides for our students, and want it to continue to serve as a resource to help in their planning for their life beyond Pine-Richland High School. Next slide, please. Finally, just out of special recognition, I'd like to highlight one of the special and unique experiences that students have the opportunity to participate in at the high school, and that being the Air Force JROTC program. I'd like to especially recognize the leadership of Major Morrison and Chief Gasparato for the program and how it has grown from 38 members in 2011 to over 100 members in the current school year. Additionally, the Crosstown Agreement with Mars Area School District has provided a unique learning opportunity for our students, as well as the students from Mars, in working together toward common goals. As a district, we are thankful for the service of our cadets. We are grateful for the community outreach, as well as their commitment to individual growth and leadership service. With that, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Pushkis. Thank you all for your time.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us tonight. I get the honor of wrapping it up for the high school team. So I just want to say thank you to Mrs. Bowman, Mr. Salopek, Dr. Sviller for their work in their program of studies. It seems like these slides go by so fast, but the amount of time and energy we all put into this takes so much planning and preparation for us to get here tonight. So a special thank you to our high school team for that. I just want to provide a short update on our in-depth program reviews. So this work continues to be ongoing based on the recommendations of each department. Here you see English language arts, library, and the music department program reviews. Next slide, please. Within ELA, we are looking to increase student ownership within the courses, cross-curricular integration, and view texts that promote diverse opportunities for our students. Currently, this focus lies within modifications to our summer reading program. Next slide. The focus within the library resources has been creating more flexible spaces within the library setting. So as learning opportunities diversify, how can we structure these spaces to build on creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, and growth for our students? Now I'd like to introduce our middle school administrative team, Jacob Minziger and Dave Christophic.
Good evening, everyone. On the left-hand side of the, Sean, can you go back real quickly? We're in the process here of redesigning, and I'm working closely with Mrs. Rowe. You can see our library has some fixed stations on the left-hand side, and then for computers and also for desk, we're hoping to move more towards, you see the top picture with the green and the white tables. That's our current 409 classroom that has a collaborative workspace where you can write on our desk and flexible furniture. And we had a really nice experience with that. And we want to help redesign our library at the middle school to look like the images you see below. And those are some other places that Mrs. Rowe has worked with. She serves on some state committees, and she's an excellent resource for a redesign of libraries. Sean, can you move forward to the next, the middle school portion of the presentation tonight? So on the next slide, I'm going to share some information with you about one highlight from our 7th grade year and one highlight from our 8th grade year of what our students do within our Naviance program. And within 7th grade, you'll see 16 career clusters. On the right-hand side, our students take a questionnaire, and then after answering a series of questions, they learn about what 3 career choices are a best match for them. After completing that activity, they do some research and they learn about what future job market for the career cluster, what educational level, salaries, and those types of things. We have last year we invited a bunch of community members and other members in for a career day and speakers that came to the middle school, and we're currently working on providing that program virtually. Next slide, please. What you'll see on the next slide here is what our 8th grade students learn about through another questionnaire through our Naviance program are these personality types. You'll see 6 of them. Within the program, and through research, it shows that if you can get into a field of interest that matches your personality, the happier the employee and longer lasting they remain within that career. So that's a real important piece for us, for our students to understand what careers and then also what type of personality matches up with their own personal interest. Next slide, please. And that's called the Holland Code, is those career clusters and the personality type 6 personality types. So they learn about that in 8th grade. We transition and we work with our guidance counselors about goal setting, and when they start to select courses moving towards the high school for our 8th graders and set up some career goals for them as they move forward. And you heard about that a little bit earlier. I'd like to turn over the next slide to Mr. Minziger. He's going to share some information with you.
Thank you, Dr. Christophic. Good evening, everyone. So circling back to our ELA program review, we've started to make some changes in the midst of the transformational change that's been going on across our school in the area of ELA. And so on the screen here, you'll see recommendation number 9 from the program review, which had to do with structuring and scheduling. And so we're starting to make some progress first in creating a lot more cross-curricular opportunities between our English, reading, and social studies classes, both at the 7th and 8th grade level. And then we're also starting to change some of the ways that we define English and reading. So in the program of studies, the course descriptions look very similar this year, but there's work going on in the background of re-envisioning what does an English course look like. So for example, our 8th grade English course is turning into more of an English language arts course, which combines elements of what you would consider a traditional English course with some of the elements of a traditional reading course. And we're looking to create some more synergy among the reading and English courses at the 7th grade level as well. Next slide, please. And so with the program of studies, we always talk about transition and kids both coming up from Eden Hall to the middle school, experiencing a program of studies for the first time, as well as our middle school students moving to the high school as 9th graders next year. And so we look at a couple things with that. The first thing being looking at having meetings with our middle school 8th graders transitioning to high school. Those are going to be re-envisioned in a virtual format for this year. And so we are working with the high school to plan out those events as they are coming up. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Seviller to explain some of the other bullet points on this slide.
Thank you. Yeah, I think here it's just really important to note that we don't want to move away from anything that we've put in place to help students and their families understand our program of studies and the scheduling process. So as Mr. Minsinger said, we just have to reimagine how we're going to bring those opportunities to our families. So for instance, we typically would bring students into our high school auditorium and talk through the program of studies and all things high school related. We can't do that in the same way. So you may see that coming to you in a podcast format and going out to students in that way. But we still do plan to teach them how to navigate the program of studies. That's something that we will be doing with our parents as well. And really the crux and the most important part of our scheduling process is the individual meetings that students have with their school counselor. And again, those may look different. They may be virtual, but we want to ensure that students are still have that planning time with their school counselor because we think that's so critical for the success of the overall process and for kids to feel good about their choices and not have any worries over the summer. Thank you.
Okay, I'll take the last one quickly, Sean. And again, just, hopefully you heard things like integration with strategic plan. You heard integration with in-depth program review. I mean, all of the work that we do outside of the program of studies drives into it, which improves the experiences for our kids. It helps our families understand options and really get at what's most appropriate for each child because each child and every family is different as well. So tomorrow, Ms. Hathorn has already queued up for us that will go out to all community, really for grades, most appropriately for grades 6 through 11, but get a chance to see the program of studies, start looking at them, and that officially kicks off our scheduling process. So we'll open up to any questions if you have any, and again, for the high school and middle school administrators, thanks for sharing tonight. Love the engagement and ownership that you guys take with this, so thank you.
So I will just say, and I already had said this to Mike, but I really appreciate the changes that I've seen over the years since I started at Pine-Richland with my kids, that the program of studies, what it has become, but even just over the last few years, how it's been changing, transforming. It just keeps getting better and better. And I see, just so much easier to use and to visualize possibilities for, education for the students so that they can see where they want to go. And like Mike had said earlier, Dr. Pasquinelli said earlier, that this document is not just the program of studies. It has so much more when you read the beginning, the introductions about the even just the new transformation of education, and just more in it as far as introduction to various departments and so on. So it's a great resource for parents to go to and for students. So it's a great job. Very good for the whole team.
Yeah, there's really so much here, and it's the process that happens every year with continual refinements, integration of ideas and outcomes from the in-depth program reviews, alignment with our strategic plan. So this must happen every year. It is happening every year. Thank you. The time management planner this year, I do really like that, and the inclusion of extracurricular activities, an easy thing to perhaps omit, but important, especially for our students, and encouraging engagement, saying don't forget to leave time for these other activities as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all so much. I do like these meetings when we get big groups, and I know we didn't keep people at your work office until 9 o'clock at night, so thank you for sticking with us. Having this much input and during the presentation, I know a lot of board members have told me repeatedly how great it's been, so thank you all for being here with us this evening. Mr. Tulio, go ahead.
We do have a second. We do need to vote on the actual changes, the actual program of studies.
Any other comments? All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Dr. Campbell, Student Services.
There we go. Just trying to get my agenda up and unmuted at the same time. There we go. So item 6.01 is a motion to approve the revised club and activity officers for the middle school as attached.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 6.02 is a motion to accept in accordance with Board Policy 702 and with sincere gratitude a donation of $3,646 for the purchase of 12 iPads that will be used with the Osmo Creative Learning Kits at Hance Elementary from the Hance PTO.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just a big thanks to the Hance PTO for this donation.
All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
And item 6.03 is a reminder for information purposes that a Student Services Committee is scheduled for February 8th at 6 p.m. To talk about redistricting. To get an update on that process.
Thank you, Ben. Dr. Mihalik, Staff Services, please.
Thank you. Item 7.01 is a motion to approve the personnel and supplemental items as attached.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 7.02 is a motion to approve the third and final reading of Policy 103, Non-Discrimination, Title IX, Sexual Harassment Affecting Students, as attached, and the retiring of Policy 248, Unlawful Harassment.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
I just want to say thanks to everyone who put so much into this. There's a lot that went into this particular series of policies.
Absolutely, there was. Any other comments? All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 7.03 is a motion to approve the third and final reading of Policy 124, Alternative Instruction Methods and Application as attached.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 7.04 is a motion to approve the third and final reading of policy 204, attendance, as attached.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 7.05 is a motion to approve the first reading of batch 600 finance policies as attached.
Second. Sorry, Mark.
The motion's been made and seconded. I'll pause a little bit here just to talk about our process with this and the 700 batch review. Any board member can and should point out any policies they would like pulled for further consideration, which we can do so in committee or as committee as a whole as appropriate. Are there any policies that are not listed here separately that board members would like to pull out? Are there any other comments on the first reading of the 600 batch revisions? We'll take a vote. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 7.06 is a motion to approve the first reading of the batch 700 property policies as attached.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Misbeck. Again, if there are any policies that any board member for any reason would like to pull out, you can let us know. We do have, I'd also highlight a new policy here on crowdfunding.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other discussion, elaboration, or wish to pull a specific policy from the batch? Seeing how there is none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 7.07 is an information item about policy 832, educational equity. And if the administration would like to comment.
So I referenced this the beginning when we talked about our strategic work. So we feel like this policy does align nicely with our work with diversity, equity, and inclusion. When you get a chance to read over this policy, you see there is a lot of language that PSBA has offered. It is a voluntary policy, so it's an opportunity for us to look at it and see how the language that's built into this policy will align to the work that we're thinking about for DEI and the reverse of the work that we're planning for DEI and how that will inform our final written policy. So it's our recommendation to receive feedback from board and community based upon this policy. We will then take through our study, make some revisions to it, and then bring it forward for continuous review over those 3 reads.
Thank you. I would say from my perspective, and this is not at all intended to slow what's been a very good process, and we spent a lot of time on it tonight, but I'm certainly willing to see the implementation, final language, and elements of this policy take more time than the tentative schedule that's been outlined here, if that's what it takes. In looking at PSBA has a lot of content around this, and it's not necessary for us to duplicate their process. I'm very happy with the process we have that's engaged with key committees, engaged with the community, stakeholders, and the board. And I'm thrilled with the level of engagement from the board as well. So I think we'll be able to get to where we want to be as quickly as any organization could. But I say that to the board and the administration that it's important to get this right as much as it is to get it quick or whatever timely is defined as. So I'll just leave it there. This is local policy. It's the definition of local policy. So we own it.
No, I would agree. And I would say when we feel like we have a good redlined version, whenever that is, that'll become the time when we begin to bring it forward for a first read. But there's a lot of work that needs to go in even to redline it in a way that we think makes sense.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Any other thoughts? Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So item 7.08 is an information item. A staff services committee meeting is scheduled for April 12th, 2021 at 6 p.m. A hiring update will be provided. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 9.01 is just a reminder. Ms. Misbach and Mrs. Williams and I have agreed to review the zero board policies as a batch and to bring forward. I would encourage board members to look at those yourself. And if you have any suggestions or ideas for policies, either for us to make suggested revisions to or to pull out of the batch ahead of time, please do let us know. Item 9.02 is also just an information and discussion item. We've held our meetings since mid-November when the school has gone 100% virtual. We've reflected that in our meeting structure. And as I pointed out before, I've heard some good feedback, and I certainly enjoy the multiple inputs we get in this form. Through practice, we would typically look to return to in-person meetings, distanced in the DeWitt room again, with limited or no in-person visitors, virtual visitors, as we move into February. But I didn't want to just assume that. We own that as well, and wanted to throw that open for discussion or reflection to the board.
So I have I say mixed feelings. I was trying to think of why I find online, that sounds kind of odd probably to some people, that it is seemingly more personal. And I feel more, not engaged, but just I can gauge reactions and so on better. And I think part of it is just that I can not see everyone's, but for the most part, when someone's speaking, I do get to see their face. Whereas when we're in our horseshoe somewhat, it's not always so easy. So that would be always, but I'm just giving, that feedback. But the other perspective that we have is that, we return when the school goes back in so it was showing a sign of support for in-person being, in the meeting room as teachers are in the classroom. So, there's two different perspectives.
I agree with Chris. Like the pleasure of seeing your faces without the masks, it's really important for like connection. But I personally will make the effort to be in person. But as everything transitions into next level, I think that we should agree that the board meetings are just as effective online, because we see the same level of engagement and dedication, and it's not meant to be like less of a hassle. It would just maybe save some time of commuting and doing other chores. So I think that that should be an option depending on the personal choice. It should be equally valid.
And I'm fine with the hybrid approach that, if we can be there, and anyone who needs or wants to be remote, be remote. So I'm happy with, us having the option of being back in the boardroom.
I would concur with Ben. I think the hybrid approach that, that way too, if you have the sniffles and you don't know what's going on, you don't come in. You don't, just, it gives it another layer of security.
Yeah, I would agree with the same. 12 years of working remote, so these meetings for me are just as effective, really, if not more so.
I would have never stopped, other than I do like the virtual option much more than the call-in option. Even going forward, pandemic behind us, you can hear, you can collaborate, you can engage. Whereas when we were on the phone, that couldn't happen. So I do like the virtual being an option going forward, regardless of pandemic or not, just because sometimes we can't all be there, but you might be able to dial up. So I do like to have that option there forever.
I'll say I think the hybrid's a good idea. I think we should model the same things that everyone else in the district will be doing. So showing up when we can, if we can, is a good thing.
Appreciate the feedback. I do find these meetings effective. They're effective because of your engagement and the work that's being done going into them and the preparation, though. So thank you.
Also, if we're back in the boardroom, I'm amazed that my children have remained quiet through all these board meetings in the background. I've had to mute a few times when I got noisy up here at bedtime, but when we go late, they come to bed and they get rowdy. So being in the boardroom would help with that for me.
Dr. P wanted us to stay virtual. He was actually getting that drywall delivered for his basement ceiling any day now. So, but I think we're going to be back in the boardroom.
Mm-hmm. Something to look forward to.
When this is all over, we can all come and help drywall that for you.
That would be awesome. I think that would be a great retreat night. We all come to my basement and hang drywall. That would be
building.
Yeah. Bring your jacket and gloves.
Appreciate the feedback, and there may be some relevant considerations as we look at those zero policies as well. So good to hear that going into that as well. All right, item 9.03 is a reminder of upcoming joint committee meetings on March 15th, discussing transition and transformation, a topic that's been danced around and highlighted in some of our updates. And on May 17th, 2021 will be diversity, equity, and inclusion. In addition, in February, in addition to our combined meeting, we would like to schedule a workshop meeting. In person, I think, would definitely be the direction on this one, especially after the previous discussion, on February 15th from 5:30 to 7:30. We do annually go through some compliance material, refresher, sunshine law, safety update. I think Dr. Miller on safety.
Yeah, that would include a review of our school resource officer, that first year of that implementation, share some feedback. And then we would spend the bulk of the time on, really trying to begin to discern what is the long-term impact of COVID-19 and how it has impacted the educational model. What might that look like? So more of a environmental scan, a look to the future, an understanding of where we are, opportunity to collaborate and really think creatively about what the future might be.
I just want to ask, but this is not a day off for the staff, right? Because it's a day off for the students, but the staff members are not that does not affect, right?
You know what? That's a good question. I didn't even look at that. It is a holiday, so Mrs. Williams, can you remind us whether we work that day or are we off that day? You're muted. I always come to work. It doesn't really matter. We just work no matter what. So.
It is a holiday.
Okay, that's a great question. All right. What does the is the 22nd an AIU meeting?
It is an AIU meeting. I was actually going to, because I was looking at that and saw that holiday when I first saw that tentative date and thought about that. Also, people who may, it's just a different year. Normally I'd avoid it for travel, but I'm not going anywhere. But I do have AIU on the 22nd.
What is Tuesday the 16th? Is it Tuesday a possible night?
That's it.
Anybody know why that wouldn't work?
I teach a class on Tuesday nights this semester, at least through early March.
All right, maybe let us look at calendars, and since it's a workshop just for the board and SLT, we'll look at calendars and try to coordinate something. We don't need to come up with that at this moment. But the idea is we want to focus on these three topics.
And just for the public's awareness, our workshop meetings are idea meetings. We take no action at those meetings. There's a lot of discussion and sharing of information only. All right. Any reports from the administration or board members that they'd like to share at this time? Recognition of visitors. Ms. Williams, do we have anyone waiting to address the board?
We do. We have two people who are patiently waiting to address the board. And so Mr. Stobener will call our first person, who is Joe Cassidy. Mr. Cassidy?
Hello?
Hi, Mr. Cassidy. Can you hear me?
I can.
Great. You are on with the board, so you can go ahead and address.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for taking my call. I sat through your COVID presentation, and all I heard was about contact tracing and mitigation. I hear that on the news every day. That is not what this discussion should be about. It should be about how you are failing our kids. During that presentation, where were the charts on mental health? Where are the charts on plunging GPAs? Why, as a school board and as an administration, are you not listening to the most important voices, the children? I know you cite experts, and for each of your experts you cite, I can cite an expert that says something totally different. So it takes me back to, why are our voices being ignored? You are making life-altering decisions for our children. That's our job. Now do your job and bring the kids back full time.
Thank you, Mr. Cassidy.
Our next speaker is Cindy Chermanera. Mr. Stobener, if you're able to give her a call. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Go ahead. You're on with the board.
So thank you very much for taking my call, and thank you for all the hard work you guys have been doing. I listened to your whole meeting tonight. My concern is on the line of what Mr. Cassidy just said. I have two children, 10th and a 9th grader. I have 4 children. 3 of them are in school. 1 college online. He's doing great. 1 in 9th grade doing fantastic. And my 10th grader is really struggling. And I just wondered what is being done about, is there any way that you guys are monitoring how GPAs are being affected by the current My Son Does hybrid? And how you're monitoring that. And I was also wondering if there's any possibility to look into allowing kids that are falling behind maybe more, because you could surely look up my son's grades and know that he was not this way pre-COVID. So he's being much more affected now. So what would allow him to be able to go 5 days? I'm advocate for all students to go 5 days, to be clear. I want everybody to go back, and I'm sure that's what you all want as well. But I just wondered if there could be some allowance for kids who are really struggling. He has 2 tutors. This is a different kid, and he's struggling so much right now. And I hear this from a lot of parents, so I know it would be a lot of parents who would need something like this. I also wondered, when you guys say the cases, I was just curious about this. You have 66 cases in December. Are those actual cases of positivity, or is it like a family member was positive? So in that number, if you have 6 people in your family, then all 6 of you are included in that 66 number. I was just curious about that. I just wanted a clarification. I also was curious if you could answer what your decisions based on to send K through 3 5-day and 7 through 12 alternating days. If you could clarify what the reasoning is behind that. And thank you guys so much for staying so late and for everything you're doing.
Mrs. Sermonera, thank you so much. I think it'd be best to have a member of the administration follow up with you, address some of those issues, especially around the student topics. So we'll have somebody reach back to you on that. But thank you for sharing with us tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Just check here one more time, and that is it.
Thank you, everyone. If there are no further reports, the board will adjourn to an executive session to discuss a personnel matter. A reminder to board members, there is yet another Google Meet link. Please follow it there. Thank you so much, everyone.